Troy University several years later in public administration, which I felt would be helpful to work through the minefields of bureaucracy up in Washington, D.C. And then in 2002, the Army selected me to go to the Army War College, where I earned a graduate degree in strategic studies. And I think as you look at all of that, it makes me the most well-rounded candidate to go to Washington, D.C. and grasp both the domestic challenges that are out there as well as the international challenges to make those tough decisions that the voters expect their leaders in Washington to be capable of making. So,
well, I think you have a lot better education for us than somebody else that I know that's running for the same job.
yes, sir. Right in the middle.
Sure, curious. Obviously, we're dealing with the war on terrorism. That's probably our 5-meter target in terms of national security issues. But I'm more concerned about, at least maybe your perspective, on economic policies in terms of dealing with the increase in entitlement spending and tax policy. Where do you see that? How do you see your campaign being able to affect that? What do you bring to that fight?
Well, as I said back in January, right at the start of the campaign, I want to look at restructuring our tax system completely. What we've got right now is one of the most impressive tax systems in the world. And what I'd like to do is have an open and frank discussion about fair tax or flat tax and figure out what tax makes the most sense for the United States of America and get away where we're discouraging free enterprise and get away where we're discouraging folks to take the initiative to go out there and work a little bit harder for a little bit better bottom line at the end of the day. And I think our progressive tax schedules that we have out there, with 63,000 pages of IRS bureaucracy, makes it terribly difficult for folks to make a living. But I'd like to take that a step further. And the way I would take that a step further is I think we need to reduce our capital gains taxes immediately. And we also need to lower our corporate taxes. Our corporate taxes today are at 35%. Our corporate taxes among the developed nations in the world are the second highest. We're only second highest to the nation of Japan. Japan, just a couple of weeks back, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal that's talking about Japan. And they're talking about lowering their corporate taxes to get out of this recession and this economic decline that they've been in for well over a decade now.
So then we get to be number one.
Well, that's exactly it. And that's not a good thing. That is precisely it. And that's why I think, why would we want to have that hung around our name as a country as the highest corporate taxes? And at the end of the day, let's not forget, we are the ones that pay corporate taxes,
correct?
Not corporations. So we discourage free enterprise, and then at the expense of discouraging free enterprise domestically, we also discourage those entrepreneurs who have investment capital to bring it into the United States and help our economy get back on track and boost our markets. So that's in a nutshell, that's the big stuff on taxes. But there's one final thing that I always put out there. I think we need to get rid of the death tax. It's unconstitutional in my opinion. And I'm not a lawyer, you guys. I'm a citizen just like you are. I grew up playing baseball over here in McFarland Park as a little kid, right next to the West Tampa Little League. And anything where you go out and you tax somebody on money they've already paid taxes on from the grave has to be unconstitutional in our books. And I believe it kills entrepreneurship. It most certainly kills family businesses. And I can tell you some stories about it, but we'll save that for another time. Now that's taxes. Now going after some of the big ticket items that are out there, I just came from an interview with the Bradenton Herald down in Bradenton a few minutes ago. And what I told them is, why is it that the Department of Defense is the only federal agency that has a strategic review of its policies, its programs, the money that we spend on it, and the reasons why we do the things we do every 4 years. And no other federal agency undergoes the same intense scrutiny. In fact, all of the other bureaucracies in our federal government have gotten larger since the Department of Defense Review was made into law in 1996. And those bureaucracies get larger and larger and larger. And at the end of the day, it's taken more and more money out of our pockets to pay for these bureaucracies. And that's on top of the 42 czars that President Obama has appointed since he got sworn into office. And those are outside of the constitutional authority that the president has. Because if you go back to that Constitution that's sitting over here on the table, it says the president cannot appoint ministerial cabinet level officials without the advice and consent of the United States Senate. But there are 42 czars out there with budgets, bureaucracy, and policy-making regulatory authorities that cost us money each and every day. The TARP czars are one of my favorite targets. No, not TARP czar, the carb czar, I'm sorry. I was talking about TARP earlier. The carb czar. The carb czar, okay, they're dealing with a problem. We have an invasive species in our Great Lakes. But the carp should be tackled through the Department of Interior, a cabinet-level position appointed by the President, confirmed by the United States Senate, with a budget that has gone through an appropriations and an authorization process. These czars don't have to go through an appropriation or an authorization process. Not the intense scrutiny. So I think that that's extra constitutional, in my opinion, and that needs to be tackled. But we need to go after all of these programs and make everybody have a strategic review to see, do we still need the Department of Energy 33 years later? Because it was created in '77 by President Carter to tackle what? Our dependency on energy from foreign countries. We're no better today than what we were 33 years ago. So why don't we do a strategic review and analysis of every department and agency in our federal government and do it in a bipartisan way with proven leaders, that we get field experts out there, as well as those folks that understand the policy-making parameters, and then let's go out there and tackle it. We can cut our spending that way.